The distribution routes have always in the past been prohibited to colored people, but know that technology is so advanced, and yet that once was prohibiting, people found many loopholes, thus it is harder than ever in history to prohibit distribution routes. The European colonies has always attempted to bully developing countries by sanctioning, as in the case of Haiti, for abolition of slavery. They made Haiti pay for their freedom. The European prevented distribution routes through controlled inspection and illusionary ownership of seas and air and land. This is appalling. This why all colored must create distribution laws. API Gateway, as Stripe and UK company asks for profile ID. Why would a payment gateway provider request photo ID when one has business number? This is an assumption it may be to limit colored to attain wealth through e-commerce. I show them my photo ID and they prohibited me to receive my earning. There are payment gateways that are not provided by Europeans and they simply request no sort of information other than business name and address, thus it's strange that they asked for so much information to be divulged before access to service. This, my friend, is distribution prohibition fraud. It's illegal to deny service based on ethnicity. I see that United Nations stated nothing about sovereign policing by citizens within their communities by their embassy. Ethiopia 1945 had created the first United Nations declaration and it was well done. It stated all persons had the right to sovereignty and security. The new declaration is quite perverse, for it lays down the right of complacency and human tolerance to foreign beliefs. This doesn't appeal to metropolitan system. Democracy is not like the native inhabitants' amalgamation of different tribes by catering and networking to build trade and commerce as they build relations with all members of that society. It more of an enslavement of different creeds, ethnicities, and tribes. No matter if it's right or left-wing, conservative or liberal. This creates an atmosphere of fear, not by a dictator in which governs all citizens in the same manner, this more perverted for its inequality to all except wealthy whites. There is a fear of the great white sharks. Conspiracy of assassination, which is a real threat that one must question the system of the psychopathic. We must call it that. How do they work? They create banks and limit loan, then they create courthouses in which they create policing or securing of their interest within that foreign land belonging to the native society. They take land by stating they own it. They create registration land office where the community must register their land while registering free land to their association, thus they create a system. They are thieves. No country can buy an entire America in 400 years. All people can do the same, but they protect the system. They create constitutional laws that favors their pervert view on humanity. Mere human resources and nothing more than lower human life to cattle. I am an economic perusalist. It's unsafe to have European colonists provide safety for immigrants. They are not going to be fair, not because of their reputation, but their interest is the European communities, thus leveraging on immigrants. Embassy must locate in foreign countries where they police immigrated citizens. They must be able to imprison offender towards that community. The lynching and assassination globally will halt. They must have a seat in the Senate as ambassadors of the communities. Parliaments should seat 200 people to run a country. Seats for ambassadors. No free county of democracy can be run without this implemented. This applies to also dictatorship or imperialist countries. If one wants to partake in the global market and trade of commerce, they must respect immigrants as citizens whom are contributing to migrated country. Gratitude to these countries will be allowing security of choice but not military enforcement, because it sends a wrong message. Country must be in alliance to host these ambassadors with country whom they accept in as immigrants. I am not stating any radical ideas, but we must be careful of the system in place in countries of West. Population multiplies by earnings dictate the amount of currency a country has, earned by skills of trade. Thus, Monarchian systems, or formerly known as economy, can be run by country by a fair system of consumers buying power versus the market, in which protected by offices of ambassadors, without infringing or disfranchising the parliaments. Ambassador has a say and their community claims of 75% of its community earnings. This is what Russia, India, China and Brazil is implementing, in which create social services for that community and fund its developments. The community earn the right of affluence. If 178 countries is given 25%, then the parliament is receiving more than their share to function accurately. This micromanagement is more secure. This will alleviate parliament from cater to such a large demographic, in which leave room for error. Global market will subsidize and feed immigrants and build repute and commerce bond. Parliaments will have the auxiliary of the embassies. The rules that must be upheld is that Parliament must not discriminate against an ethnic group through one-sided laws of acts against group, and United Nations must view discrepancy and must record all illegal discriminations cases. If United Nations do not intervene, then 178 counties must rethink the legitimacy of the legal jurisdiction and its proclamation. In order for country as Canada to be owned by UK, it's impossible. Their population cannot generate enough wealth of that altitude and care for their citizen and claim the entire Canada. I am not here to whistle-blow. I just want you to prevent this to happen in Africa. We must respect ourselves and create a system in which they cannot develop a system like this outside of European boundaries. It's not clever, but a psychopathic tendencies to control the flowing of currency of an abundant society. Let's imagine if Eurocentric ideologies wasn't here. Yes, we would have dictators within north of the equator, as history of the Mongolians. China would have defeated this ideology of reforming society of oppression in Asia. Africa would be wealthy and their metropolitan would be booming with few but necessary civil wars. That wouldn't have the chance to proliferate if is a regime of oppression for tribes which are families from one family tree. Thus no prohibited distribution of trade routes to America, and all would continue a relation with Native American. They would have their native land in which allied with Africa and Asia. There would not be Mediterranean. Palestine and Israel are one united group. This is realistic point of view. India would be free and wealthy, no oppression, and free to trade globally. There wouldn't be an atomic bomb unless Asia would create it. Realistically, they wouldn't need to. The only threat all great nations would have is civil war. There wouldn't be slavery, for this doesn't appeal to Asian or natives. The African would not indenture criminals, they would have a prison system. There wouldn't be a global hunger or need to conform. There would be technological advancement that would marvel all that came before. There would be global effort to prevent environmental issues. More people would be cultured and ethical. There wouldn't be tolerance for perversions and social disorders. There would be more effort to cure than to treat illnesses. All people would own their own land. Native American would create their democracy government and be credited, perpetuating the sought for peace amongst the nations. The truth is the world would be more civilized without the interference of European whom enslaved through constitutional ownership or through systemic racism. This is a fact that the world would be in a better constituent governance. This an observation and not an attack on the contributions by brilliant intellect of European who had advanced society. This is the facts to discern inequality from equality.
What went down in Jersey City today